rebuilding my small block Chevy 350, and I'm doing it on a budget. So I'm going to reuse the hydraulic roller lifters, and what I'm going to do is take these apart, clean these up, soak them in solvent, and reuse them. The way I find works, what I do is I just take it all apart. There's only about 8 or 9 components in this whole thing, if even that. What I do is in the top here there's a little clip. Okay, so I got a little screwdriver and a little hook. I find that get the clip out, you put your finger over the top of it so your spring doesn't go flying, and you just stick it in there, pop it out, work it around, and it pops out pretty easy. It's just a little kind of square shaped clip. Has an open end that flexes in. There's a little groove in here. There's a little groove in there, so it's one part. Now when you take this off, usually if you just kind of take the palm of your hand and you just kind of smack it in your hand, usually the top part comes out, which is looks like this. It's just a little kind of like a little cap, and it's got a little washer that sits on top of it. So far I got a clip, a little cap looking thing with a hole in it, and a little washer. Okay, now this here is the hard part. I don't know how well you can see inside here. Let me shine a light in here to see if I can make it any better for you to see in there. But if you look down here, you'll see like an inner cylinder. At the bottom you'll see a little round steel ball. To pull this thing out, there's a lot of ways to get them out. Some people use compressed air. They just stick a nozzle down there and into the lower the ball's at and spray compressed air to pop them out. Some people use a push rod, and they try to get this part of the push rod underneath there's like a little lip, and you can kind of pull on it. Some people use a little pilot bearing puller. There's a little lip there, but what I find that works really well is if you shine a light down inside there, you will see a little bitty hole inside the inner cylinder just under the lip. You got to find it. But what I like to do, I like to stick a hook inside this little hole and just kind of give it a pull. And you notice how I grab that? I'm grabbing that, kind of pulling on it. It's popping out. And just give it a little pull. I'm still inside the, oh, see, popped it right out. I was inside that little hole. Now, when you have this part, you turn it upside down, another spring is going to pop out. So you have this main part, a little spring, and you have this part. This was the part that's the cylinder that was fitting inside there I was telling you about. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's that little hole. This is the little hole I reached through, and I reached in and grabbed that hole right there. I don't know if you can see this or not, but that's the part I grabbed onto and I pulled it out. Okay, now this is pretty much taking it apart. You can pretty much just set these parts right here in a solvent, let them soak, and clean it all up with a brush. If you wanted to, you can break it down even more just by turning this little cylinder upside down and using a hook and reaching inside here and popping this little cover off. Once again, put your hand over it because it might go fly. There's a little spring in there and it'll go flying. But as you can see, there's like a little cap, tiny little cap, and if you look inside the cap, you'll see like a little indented ball that a spring will, well, not really a ball, it's a little indent, looks like a little dome. It's at the bottom of this, and that's where the spring sits. So you have that part, and you have a tiny little spring and a little steel ball. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a tiny little steel ball and a tiny little spring, and that's it. That's all the parts in here. Put this back together. I like to build up the little cylinder, get all the parts back in it before I try to stick it in the main cylinder. So what I do is I get the little cylinder, take this part. I like to stick my little check valve right inside there, right in the center. Get your little check valve ball, stick it in there. Now I like to flip this little cap over, and I'll stick my little spring inside the hat and let the spring sit over the indent. See how that's I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's stuck in, you know, the ball's in line with the little hole, and this ball's in the cap with the spring over the little indent. Now I'm just gonna slowly set this over that. My spring is riding good. Just gonna set that right there, and I'm just gonna push in just like that. Take your oh, where'd my little screwdriver go? Take my little screwdriver and just kind of push in on the edges. Push down. Make sure everything's seated real well. Just going to push down a little. Now before I go any further, I want to look inside and look at the little ball, and you want to make sure that spring is operating right before you seal this all up. So I just like to stick something down in there and actuate the ball, make sure it pops right back. You can hear it, spring popping back. This piece is ready to go. It has you know, it's all ready to go back in there. So you can set this to the side, take your main cylinder, and the spring goes in next. It goes down in there and is seated into the main cylinder, and you look down in there and you can see that it's seated in there. Next to go is you take the big cylinder and the little cylinder, put the little cylinder back in the big cylinder, and just kind of push it down a little bit. Then you take your little washer, and that'll fit down inside there like that, and this cap fits over the top. And then now you're ready to push this down in there. The way you just kind of, you gotta compress this part now. I like to use a push rod. Just push it down, hold it down, and stick it in there. Get your spring. I'm going to use a push rod. I'll get my little clip. I'll stick it from the top. Let it just fall down there like that. And I'll push this down. And I'll use my thumb and try to get that clip to go in. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it falls in pretty easy. Okay, I got the front part started. So now I'm just going to hold that with my thumb and try to pop this clip in. which just popped it right in. It's a pain sometimes if you have somebody else to help you, you know, while you're pushing this down, holding it, you know, have them slip that clip in. It's a lot easier. I've gotten pretty good at it, but my method is I just use the push rod, hold it down, we'll slip the clip over the push rod, hold it down, and I just use my thumb to stick it in, and then I hold it, and then I pop it in. But pretty much that's it. You just take it apart, have all those pieces soak them in solvent, use a brush, clean out the inside and everything, and it's as simple as that.